Greeting to everyone, we are from Group 1B, so below is our group member which is Henry, Fauzi, Zhi Qi, Syamimi, and me, Shi Yin. So this is our title. Our title is Important Factors Contribute to the Dynamics of Inflation in Malaysia. I will move on to the introduction about our case study today. So we know that inflation has made the consumer in Malaysia losing their purchasing power and even some of the employees losing their jobs. So this was also shown by some crisis events that happened to the world, for example like the Asian economic crisis that happened in 1997, the weakened US financial industry and impact the international trade, and the Russian-Ukraine war. We try to know that some factors that contribute to the inflation, such as the exchange rate and unemployment rate. So this case study also we try to explain whether those factors have significant effects and impact on it. So how we do is we have the appropriate econometric model and statistical tests. We're using this to trying to get our appropriate result. So I'll move on to the problem statement. So for our problem statement is actually the problem with this finding is the factor that contribute to the dynamic of inflation in Malaysia. The increasing risk of inflation is anticipating to diminish the purchasing power of majority of Malaysians, and how placing the retailers in a challenging position dealing with both global supply disruption and a surge in commodity price. So I will now go in more details about the events that we mentioned just now. So in 1997 to 1999 actually happened the Asia economic crisis. So this thing is actually increasing in the retrenchment, which is have a total of 83,865 workers. So this one is actually a sharp increase from 90,000 workers. So this thing will actually affect on Malaysia financial landscape, such as force the Malaysian ringgit to depreciate by about 80%, which from the 2 ringgit 50 cent to 4 ringgit 50 cent per US dollar and standard of living. So this economic crisis leads to a significant raise in the inflation rate, which is to 5.3%. So I'll move on to the 2008 crisis, which is financial crisis. So this is the difference with the 1998 is this crisis do not emerge in Asia or Malaysia. This is due to the weakness in the US financial industry, which escalated into a severe international financial crisis and deep slump in the global trade and recession by the late 2008. So this actually affecting of the demand decrease, income reduction, and the job loss, which will eventually increase the employment rate. So the inflation rate here is actually reached a new higher, which is 5.4%. And next, how about 2017? 2017 here happened the flu crisis, which the inflation driven by higher flu prices, and this was also caused by the higher global commodity prices and disruption in domestic food supplies. So this effect is the increase in natural gas prices will also depreciate the exchange rate. So the inflation rate here was 3.9%. How about the more near to us is 2021 and 2022. So at here, what happened is the Russian-Ukraine conflict. So what's the factor? The factor is increased raw material prices, disruption in supplies, and global tensions. So this thing will affect in rise in cost affecting the business, which causing some people might lost their job and consumer alike. So at the inflation rate here is actually surged to 3.4% in 2002 due to the conflict. So hence, we knowing the crisis, there are so many crises here happened here. So this is also show that there will be a spike in inflation every 10 years in Malaysia. So I will pass on to the next one.
There are two objectives, which is to evaluate whether exchange rate and unemployment rate have a significant effect on inflation rate, and the second one is to evaluate the impact of the exchange rate and unemployment rate on inflation rate. So this is the equation for an appropriate economic model, which is inflation equal to F, exchange rate, and unemployment rate. Next, I will explain about the exchange rate rules in inflation. Exchange rate is a rate at which one currency will be exchanged for another currency and affects trade and the movement of money between countries. Structural inflation theory, which is supply-side factors that influence inflation. Ringgit Malaysia currency depreciate will increase price of imported raw material. Final product will become more expensive, hence increase inflation rate. Hence, there will be a negative relationship between exchange rate, Ringgit Malaysia per USD, and inflation rate. From the past research for exchange rate roles in inflation, a research done by Chang and Tan in 2002 said that inflation rate has negative relationship with exchange rate. So the title of research is Inflation in Malaysia. He also highlighted that external factors such as exchange rate are relatively more important than domestic factors in determining inflation in Malaysia. Next is the unemployment rate's role in inflation. Unemployment rate is the percentage of the total labor force that is unemployed but actively seeking employment and willing to work. Phillips curve theory correlation, which is inverse relationship between unemployment and inflation. So the labor market dynamics impacting wage pressures and inflation. According to the past research, Guha and Visviki in 2001, according to their research using an empirical method on the United States from 1949 until 1999 using time series data of CPI, it was analyzed under urban or rural site and statistic of the number of laborers in the US as well. Based on this research, they identify that unemployment rate has an inverse relation to inflation rate or trade-off. So the lower the unemployment rate, the higher the inflation rate. This is the equation for econometric model, which is inflation rate equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 exchange rate plus beta 2 unemployment rate plus error term.
Next, we are talking about the evidence of research. This is some information from World Bank and Department of Statistics Malaysia. This the table shows all the data, and we will then use the regression analysis using the ordinary least square in our model.
Good day everyone, my name is Henry. Once we insert all the data from World Bank and Department of Statistics Malaysia in eViews, this is the result generated. Our observation is 41, which is from the year 1982 to 2022. This is our estimated regression model, which is inflation rate equal to 8.4463 minus 1.0768, exchange rate minus 0.6107 unemployment rate. This shows both the independent variable have a negative relationship with inflation rate. This is our ASR squared, which is 0.243794, means that approximately 24.38% of the variability in the inflation rate can be explained by the combination of exchange rate and unemployment rate. We also calculated for F statistic. Null hypothesis is b1 equal to b2 equal to 0. Alternative hypothesis is not at all slope coefficient are simultaneously 0. Our F stats is 7.447834. Our F critical value is 3.23. Since our F stats is more than the critical value, hence we reject the null hypothesis and conclude that our model is significant overall. We also do the diagnostic test on our model. First is the regression model is linear, correctly specified, and has an additive error term. We will use the Ramsey reset test. Null hypothesis is the model is not misspecified, and alternative hypothesis is the model is misspecified. The p-value is 0.8956, which is more than our alpha 0.05. Hence, we do not reject the null hypothesis, and it shows that our model is not misspecified. Second is no zero correlation of error term. Null hypothesis is no autocorrelation, and alternative hypothesis is higher order correlation. P-value of chi-square is 0.8036, which is more than alpha 0.05. Hence, we do not reject the null hypothesis and conclude that there is no autocorrelation. Third is no heteroscedasticity in error term. Null hypothesis is no heteroscedasticity, and alternative hypothesis is heteroscedasticity. P-value of chi-square is 0.2873, which is more than our alpha 0.05. Hence, we do not reject the null hypothesis of no heteroscedasticity. Fourth is no perfect multicollinearity. We will use variance inflation factors. The VIF for both exchange rate and unemployment rate is 1.161290, which is less than 5. Hence, there is no existence of problematic multicollinearity in our model. Fifth is error term is normally distributed. Null hypothesis is residuals are normally distributed, and alternative hypothesis is residuals are not normally distributed. The p-value is 0.430331, which is more than our alpha 0.05. Hence, we do not reject the null hypothesis, which shows that residuals are normally distributed. We also compare our model to another model to show why we choose this model other than the second model. The second model will include foreign direct investment inside the model. The estimated regression model is inflation rate equal 4.4260 minus 0.5846 exchange rate minus 0.3362 unemployment rate plus 0.3537 foreign direct investment. And this is the eViews. We will tend to compare in terms of diagnostic tests. The second model shows that it follows 4 of the assumption of ORS, which is regression model is linear, correctly specified, and has an additive error term, no zero correlation of error term, no heteroscedasticity in error term, and no perfect multicollinearity. But the second model does not follow one of the assumptions, which is error time is normally distributed. Non-hypothesis is residuals are normally distributed, and alternative hypothesis is residuals are not normally distributed. P-value is 0.024414, which is less than the alpha 0.05. Hence, we reject the null hypothesis and conclude that the residuals are not normally distributed. Hence, this is the reason why we choose our current model rather than the second model. Our model follows 5 of the assumption of ORS, and the second model did not follow 1 out of 5 assumption of ORS.
Okay, I will explain about how does this objective will be achieved. So the first objective, we will use t-test to test whether exchange rate have a significant on inflation rate. So the null hypothesis will be exchange rate does not have a significant effect on inflation rate, while the alternative hypothesis will be exchange rate does have a significant effect on inflation rate. So after we use the EViews, right, we obtain the p-values 0.003, which is below the 0.5, which we will reject the null hypothesis, as well as it means that exchange rate does have a significant effect on inflation rate at the 0.05 level, and it also shows that exchange rates have a negative relationship with inflation rate. That's the first objective that we obtain. Okay, after we test the exchange rate, right, we will then test for another variable, which is unemployment rate, using the same test, which is t-test. So for this variable, we will use the null hypothesis. Unemployment rate does not have a significant effect, while the alternative hypothesis will be unemployment rate does have a significant effect on inflation rate. So after the EViews results come out, we obtain the p-value, which is 0.026, and also we conclude that we will reject the null hypothesis, since it have a significant effect on inflation rate at the 0.05 level, and it also shows that the unemployment rate has a negative relationship with the inflation rate. So that's the first objective. We using t-test to obtain the p-value. So the second objective, as we can see, the exchange rate and unemployment rate, we get negative coefficients. This shows that 1 unit increase in the official exchange rate, which means we convert to ringgit to the USD, is associated with a decrease of 1.08 units in the inflation rate, holding other variables constant. This suggests an inverse relationship between the exchange rate and inflation. As the exchange rate increases, inflation tends to decreases. Next, for 1 unit increase in the unemployment rate, which is unrate, the inflation rate, which is INFL, is expected to decrease by 0.61 units, holding other variables constants. This suggests a negative relationship between unemployment and inflation.
Before we end our presentation, we will conclude that our econometric analysis established a significant relationship between inflation rates, exchange rate, and the employment rate. As confirmed by robust statistical tests, the direction of the relationship is negative and emphasizing its practical significance. Since we knew that the exchange rate and unemployment rate can affect inflation rate in Malaysia, government of Malaysia can actually overcome the situation by linking increase in wages to increase in productivity. This will have a dual effect that will control wages and at the same time increase productivity, hence raise production of goods and increase our country's jobs opportunities. Government should adopt a flexible exchange rate system that allows the currency to adjust to the market forces. This can help maintain competitiveness in international trade and adjust to economic shocks, hence improve Malaysia's currency. Both of these actions will help in solving inflation problem, and the findings offer valuable insights for policymakers to fine-tune monetary policies, particularly in times of economic fluctuations. That's all from our group. Thank you.